Hey yo, be sure to like, subscribe, follow. You know what to do. Say hello to the bad guy, man.
Let's go! This ain't the box fight! Austin Stinker, he stinks!
Oh shit!
It's gone!
What's up, fam? Welcome to a very special episode of Lazy Booking Live here on A2D Radio. Solemn times to talk about tonight, guys. But we're going to talk about the career of one of the greatest of all time. In my opinion, and we're going to talk about the poll question. So I'm going to spoil it already. The greatest to never win a major company's world heavyweight champion, Scott Hall, who we lost yesterday. Complications from his surgery. We're going to talk about that. We're going to go through Scott's life. We're going to talk about his career with myself, joined by Andy Ritter from In This Very Ring. You saw our boy Frank popping in early, giving us the hey yo. So there he is. Throw it up, baby. Wolfpack sign, love it. So we're going to talk about all that, but we got to pay some bills and we got to show some love to our sponsors who support this wonderful platform that you all love, that you all like to check out for all of your sports, wrestling, and everything in between. We got to pay some love. Andy, who are we paying love to tonight, buddy?
So tonight's very special Lazy Booking is brought to you by Dr. Paul Vidal at Specialized Physical Therapy. He's got 2 locations, Burlington and Cherry Hill, New Jersey. He's our doc. Make him yours. Check him out on the web at specializedphysicaltherapy.com.
There it is, guys. So make sure you guys check out the doc. He is the best in the business. And he also occasionally joins the boys over on Sundays for the flagship Agree to Disagree. So,
and he actually weighed in on our show this past week too, when we were talking about Big E.
Wow.
I reached out to him and got him to weigh in.
That is phenomenal. So I'll go back and check that out. You can find that on the A2D archives. You can find everything from sports conversation, draft talk coming up, to past interviews and whatnot, and special shows we've done here on our wrestling programs. So make sure you guys check that out. But again, the poll question tonight, or topic of conversation, is Scott Hall. Agree, disagree? Scott Hall is the greatest wrestler to never win a major world title. It's a simple question. Everybody out there on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you guys are watching us, make sure you guys like, subscribe. Make sure you guys comment in. This is a very special show. We want to hear from you guys. We want to hear your memories of Scott. As a fan, if you had the privilege of meeting him, we want to hear from all of you regarding all of this. So it's a solemn time, but it's also a time to celebrate one of the greats. We have our little things. I mean, to me, the biggest moment in the history of professional wrestling, probably I forget already, Andy, which way I'm supposed to point. Love the cup, by the way. You know, arguably the greatest faction of all time, and I'm sure that's something that you could debate. But Andy, we're gonna kick it off. I kind of already gave my answer. I'll react to you. Scott Hall, greatest to never win a world title.
I want to meet the person that disagrees to this poll, though, right? And take out obviously the fact that the wrestling world's in mourning, and everybody's going to be like, oh yeah, he was the greatest ever, or the greatest this, or greatest that. Everybody's going to say so many good things about Scott Hall over the next week or so. But when you really sit down and think about it, you have names. I would have to pull up a list of names of who hasn't won a title, but Scott's at the top of that list. Scott is the pinnacle of that list, right? And why? Why is he the pinnacle of that list? Well, because he didn't need the title. He never needed the world title to sit at the top of the mountain and say, well, I'm the best. What do you do for a living? Right? He made, Brinkman said it earlier, and I can't believe I'm actually agreeing with Brinkman. Hall made being the villain cool. Right?
Briggs is a big Scott Hall guy.
Like, gee, I wonder why.
He's a phenomenal Scott Hall guy.
You know, and then you think about what he did with the Intercontinental title. And then if you go even further to when he was in WCW, other than the tag titles, which he won with Nash, I don't think he touched gold at all over there. Because you really didn't need it at that point.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy that built a career 110% around walking out there, grabbing the microphone, and talking. The wrestling was good. He was a great wrestler, but everybody thinks back to how he was the mouthpiece of so many different iconic moments. So, yeah, This is 100% an agree. You agree to this poll without question.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple you could throw out there. Owen Hart would be a name you could throw in there. Rick Rude would be another name. Maybe Ted DiBiase, although I think Ted DiBiase is the tier under these guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that would probably be the top 3. Well, maybe DiBiase's up there. That'd probably be the top 4 guys that I could think of that could be in this debate. But when I look at Scott Hall, and to your point, there was never a point in Scott Hall's career once he hit WWF that whatever program he was in didn't matter. And it didn't have to be a title program.
Yep.
You know, even a guy like Ted DiBiase had times where his program kind of floundered a little bit, where, you know, I don't want to say flounder, but it wasn't like must see. It wasn't a feature. And, you know, you talk about how charismatic he was. You know, I think of one word when I think of Scott Hall. I think cool. Whether he was a good guy, he was a bad guy, he made it cool to be a pro wrestling fan. Like, everybody knows who Scott Hall is. You know, my sister said today she went to work, and she works in the medical field, and she said people at work, like women, were like, "Did you hear about Razor Ramon passing away?" And like, everybody knows who Scott Hall is, or Razor Ramon.
Yep. You use Razor Ramon to identify him with a lot of, you know, don't take this the wrong way, a lot of people your age, right, know him as Razor. My age more know him as Scott Hall because that's when NWO was kicking off.
Yeah.
Right? This was a guy that made himself relevant in 2 generations, 2 eras, right, of professional wrestling without changing a thing.
Yeah. He managed to take the same character, basics of it, and whether it was him being his own name, Scott Hall, or even if you look at the Razor Ramon character, go back and look at what the Diamond Stud was back in WCW. There's really not much of a variance. It's just that you have a company who knows what to do with a guy like that. And you had a company that wasn't run by anybody who had any kind of a wrestling brain, a pizza guy who had no idea what to do with him. And it became obviously Vince's gain by being able to acquire him and create, they together created this amazing character in Razor Ramon. But, you know, Scott, he's just one of those guys. And somebody said it, and it resonated with me. He made it where the bad guy was the good guy, which is so ironic. You know, I mean, you talk about like loving guys who are heels and this and that. Scott's character never really changed that much, but it was okay, right? The bad guy was the good guy. People loved him, and his in-ring work I thought was excellent. Like, I look at him, right, and at a time where everybody's, you know, they're doing the closed fist punching, right? It's all closed fist punching, and you know the referees used to tell you open the fist. He's the first guy I can really remember where he never really threw a punch. Everything was slaps to the face.
Yep.
That was his, like, it was like one of those things, like, just looking at that, right, when I see him and you have him do that slap, and then he would do the turn around and give a big slap. I mean, it's something so simple. Nothing flashy. And it was just cool looking. It looked legitimate in everything that this guy did.
Well, and take just the slaps, right? Look at who did that after him.
I mean, everybody does it now.
Right now, but one of the bigger names was The Rock.
Yep.
Rock did that as he was coming up. That's what he essentially modeled it after.
spot on. This guy, he's another guy. You never really saw him throw a punch.
Mhm.
It was always the slaps to the face, and it's so sad about what happened with him. Considering everything that this man's been through in his life, and it wasn't always rainbows and butterflies, and he's the first one to tell you. But you know what? The world's not perfect, and a lot of things happen with people, and he's one of those true redemption stories where I think, over time, everybody always share. Oh, Piper and Hennig are other ones. See, Nate, I don't know that Piper ever. I never loved Piper's in-ring work. Hennig is a good one, but Piper's in-ring work he was good, but it never breeded world champion to me. Scott Hall had the look, he had the character, he had the cool factor, he had the big feel factor and everything that he did, and it always felt relevant and important. And I think that that's really important to take into factor when you talk about this. Owen Hart had his window where he was really, really good, and that's why I think he's in that. And when you talk about in-ring work too, I would argue that Owen Hart was a better worker than Brett was, and I would argue that all day. No offense to Brett, but
Question: is that biasness?
no, I would stand by that today.
Okay.
And Brett's my gripe with Brett was never his in-ring work.
Okay.
He's a phenomenal in-ring worker.
Just making sure.
Conversation for another time because I don't want to get off track with Bret Hart talk. But Scott Hall was a total package. He was everything, and it's a shame. And I'm loving all these comments coming in. The rest in peace Scott Hall, rest in peace Razor. Appreciate you guys chiming in. Make sure you guys continue to do that. If you have any matches, any memories that you guys want to drop in, please drop them into the comments section. This is a great time to kind of talk about it, reflect on Scott's career. Loving the hey yo's coming in and everything else.
Oh yeah.
What's up, Dad? But yeah, I look at him and speaking of the total package, here's G dropping in, my boy G saying Lex Luger. Between him and Owen Hart, that's Pete Evans. Pete Evans here from ATD Radio. Keep them comments coming, guys. Keep them going. This is a great time for us all to kind of get in and have a conversation. Chucks, how are you, buddy? See, Chucks is not even a wrestling fan, but he's about to hit a Razor's Edge on someone as a tribute. Chucks is not a wrestling guy, but he knows Razor Ramon.
I would pay to see that.
I would love to. Chucks, if you could I will let you drop a Razor's Edge on me if we could get that. I'm dead serious.
Mary, grab the camera.
Listen, man, to this day, when you're in a pool with people and you guys are messing around, what's up, John? Hey, yo, love it. How many times do you go in a pool and you're roughhousing with your friends and somebody's getting hit with a Razor's Edge in the pool? It is always going to happen. It's just one of those things. But, you talk about what this guy went through in his life early in life, breaking into pro wrestling. I'm sure most people would know. And if you haven't seen it, there's, his documentary, Living on a Razor's Edge is really good. You can find it on the NBC Peacock app. It used to be the WWE Network. If you're international and joining us, you can find it on the WWE Network. But he talks about the story about when he was bouncing before, right? And he had an altercation with somebody who had a gun. The gun went off, ends up killing the guy. It's one of those, he's had a really weird history through his life. And then ultimately, he was found to be absolved from everything on that. But he has constantly overcome all these different barriers, whether they're inflicted elsewhere, outside influences, or his own self-inflicted. But, the point I was getting to earlier, right? You look at Jake Roberts, you look at Scott Hall and some of these guys. Scott Hall is one of those guys, you always rooted for, right? You could go in the mainstream, right? And there's people like Britney Spears and different things where in a culture where everybody's looking to tear someone down, he's one of the few that despite in our culture where we're looking to find the flaws in people so we can hit social media and bring them down, and we're going to go back 15 years for tweets to find things people said, Scott Hall is one of those guys that everybody always backed. They always cheered for and wanted to see him turn everything around, right? And Fortunately, he did, to where we were able to see one of the greatest, or at least most memorable Hall of Fame inductions of all time.
And probably one of the shortest.
And I'm a fan of that. I'm not gonna lie. I think a lot more should be like that. But yeah, I find it hard to look at the total package and not see him as probably the greatest to never carry a major world title. And that major, we're saying, WWE or WCW, or, now for guys of this generation who may not do it with AEW being around, the mainstream companies.
Well,
NWA would be, maybe if you want to throw out NWA from the 80s. And
I'm looking at his accomplishments here now, right? The only heavyweight championship he held was the DDT Pro Wrestling. He was the Iron Man Heavyweight Championship. United States Wrestling Association. He was the USWA Unified World Heavyweight Championship.
mm-hmm.
The World Wrestling Council. He was the Caribbean Heavyweight Championship and the WWC Universal Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, Intercontinental title, United States title, tag title, TV title. That's Slammy Award winner. That's really it.
Yeah. It's not, and that's the point though, Andy. This guy never, everything he ever didn't matter who he worked with. It felt like one of the biggest, if not the biggest program going on in WWE.
And here's something else to think about too, right? So he debuts in '84,
Mm-hmm.
right? He has a small tryout matches for WWF in '87 and '90.
Mm-hmm.
He's at WCW in '89, and he's in WWF by '94.
Yes.
In '94, when he
was
really
it '94 or '93? I thought he came in '93.
So in '93, 92 technically.
Right.
End of
Or
92.
like late '92, I think he came in.
Mm-hmm. But I'm going somewhere with this because I'm just looking over his accomplishments.
Sure.
In '94, he was ranked number 7 in PWI's 500.
Mm-hmm.
In '94, when he'd only been on the mainstream for 3 or 4 years at that point?
2 years, really. I mean,
yeah.
Don't count the early run at WCW as a Diamond Stud and other characters, because he was just a guy at that point,
Yeah, I mean, '94 was his year, if you think about it, too. And we'll get into it later, right? That's WrestleMania 10. That's Michaels. It's the ladder match.
Yeah.
But
well, let's dive in. He had the early runs, in some of those other companies that you mentioned. '92, he starts coming into WWF.
Mm-hmm.
The vignettes alone, Andy, are some of the most iconic of all time. I hold them up there with the Mr. Perfect vignettes, with the DiBiase vignettes. When you go back to some of the best introductions of characters, back when they really did a solid job of introducing characters. And I feel like it's a lost art of what we see now. The whole, modeling the character after Scarface, and coming in and sitting at the table and clearing the table off and all that stuff. I mean, he was just, there was so much creativity with that Vince and him were able to put together to just introduce this character. He felt like a big deal before he came in. And we can't say that about a lot of people. Not now, not then. And he was one of those guys. Again, like you look at Kurt Hennig throwing the footballs to himself and the pool and all the different things, that I would put those up there as well. But there was just something special about this character before he ever stepped foot in the ring.
No, I agree. And like you think back to how he came in, right? It's in '92 is when the dark matches start, right? He made his in-ring debut on August 8th, 1992, on an episode of Superstars, right? And the Razor's Edge comes out. And he's got the big gold chain, and like when he does it, it's like, wow, everything we saw in the vignettes literally translated in the ring, and there was no disconnect. Because sometimes and obviously more now than it was back then. You got that disconnect. The vignette, oh, these vignettes are cool. Guy shows up in the ring. What the hell are you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? But he did it so well. And right out the gate, he's in a major angle in September where he's in attacking Savage during his match against Ric Flair. Right? So out the gate, you're a month in, and you're in, quote unquote, the world title picture.
Well, you're amongst wrestling royalty when you're thrown right into a program with the likes of Randy Savage and Ric Flair. I think Warrior, I think, was involved in that program at one point. I think that they had Savage and Warrior, I think, tag teaming at that point.
At Survivor Series.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
him and Flair versus Savage and Warrior at the Survivor Series that year.
Yeah, I think that he might have replaced Kurt Hennig maybe in that.
The Warrior was fired from the WWF prior to the event.
So maybe Hennig replaced Warrior then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
See, this is my prime. What's nice about this too, Andy, is we are very different eras of when we started watching, right? So I lived the entirety of his mainstream run. I remember the vignettes coming in with Razor Ramon. I go back and I look at even matches him and Bob Backlund WrestleMania 9, his first WrestleMania. They're throwing him in with the likes of Bob Backlund, who's a former world champion, Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
In his first WrestleMania, one of my favorite WrestleManias, WrestleMania 9 at Caesar's Palace. I don't care what Meltzer rates anything. Phenomenal WrestleMania.
Bobby Heenan on a camel.
Best commentary. There's 2 WrestleManias that I'm telling you, the commentary alone is phenomenal. And I mean, we got WrestleMania season coming, and we'll be having some WrestleMania conversations coming up on some of these shows. But WrestleMania 8 and WrestleMania 9, Bobby Heenan, Heenan and Monsoon at 8, and then Heenan and Savage, and all through WrestleMania 9, from the camel backwards with his dress sticking. It's just a phenomenal thing. But I think about that first WrestleMania where he comes in and immediately they put him in with Bob Backlund. And really, for all intents and purposes, it was practically a squash. You could tell right away they had big aspirations for this character.
Yeah, absolutely. And he wins that match with a roll up, right? And then it's a few months later though, when it's the infamous match against the 1-2-3 Kid on Raw, right? Mm-hmm. And the next thing you know, it's a King of the Ring tournament. He turns face at King of the Ring and wrestles DiBiase at SummerSlam.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's his 92. What a 92 to have. Well, 92, 93.
He didn't turn face at King of the Ring.
Yeah, not at King of the Ring. So hold on. So he loses to the Kid, well, the X-Pac, right, on May 17th.
Which, by the way, before we even move forward, let's talk about that. What a moment that was.
Right.
This is a guy still building his own place, right, with the company, still working towards a world title picture. He sees this kid, Sean Waltman, takes him under his wing, puts him over in what I, to this day, believe is one of the biggest moments of Monday Night Raw history.
Wasn't that wasn't Monday Night Raw? That wasn't the debut of Monday Night Raw, was it? No. Debut was in January.
It was the first season, though.
Yes, the first year.
But you talk about what an iconic moment that was, right? How he made a star. He made a star in Sean Waltman.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of those early first times, right? This was back when you had true jobber matches, right? And these guys would come on and they would squash everybody. And just the way that this match was done, where he's dominant the whole match, he's not taking the kid seriously, boom. Hits a moonsault, rolls him up for the pin. It gets crazy. Then they had the $10,000 challenge, and it snowballed. And he made Sean Waltman, who is another one of the most iconically remembered stars, particularly from the Attitude Era. A guy who was in both NWO and DX. The only guy to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think
I don't count Sean later down the road. I don't count when Sean.
No, I don't count that Sean, and I think Hunter might have been in that or something too. I can't remember, but no, you're right. Like when you talk about the true iterations of those two brands at their peaks, Sean Waltman was a part of that. You know, Waltman tweeted out today, or was it today or yesterday, a picture of Scott wearing the 6 pool ball shirt and said, even when I was out with a broken neck and I left the company, he wore that shirt to the ring every week in support for me.
Yeah, and he made everybody in the NWO shout him out when they were on the mic. Yeah, that was today. I was reading that a couple hours ago.
Yeah. It's so he was very giving in a lot of things. I've been very vocal. I'm not a huge Jeff Jarrett guy. But when I look at Jeff Jarrett and I think of Jeff Jarrett programs, the rivalry I come to is the Razor Ramon one. And those two had a dynamic in and of their own. When you look at those two characters and how they competed over the Intercontinental Championship when it was truly the Intercontinental Championship. I know we, back in the early days of Lazy Booking, we did a Intercontinental Title Championship tournament. And I believe Razor may have lost out to Shawn Michaels in the finals, but Razor was the top 2. Why are you rolling your eyes?
Because he shouldn't have lost.
No. Shawn Michaels, at that time, was the Intercontinental Champion. Even despite, listen, and there's no disrespect to Razor. Don't make me disrespect on this show here.
So we'll save it for another damn day then.
Well, I'm saying in hindsight, we look at it and we see the work of both. But at that time, coming out of that, Shawn Michaels became a bigger star at that moment coming out of that ladder match.
Yeah.
But again, we could talk about that. You know, they say it's first ever Intercontinental or first ever ladder match. It wasn't. It was Shawn and Brett on Challenge, I think, or something. But
well, I think they fixed that later. They said it was the first ever ladder match at WrestleMania.
Maybe. I don't know.
I thought they retconned that.
I'm pretty sure they said last night on the video package it was the first ever WWE ladder match, which is not true. But, and Brett will make sure to remind you of that. I've heard him say that 1,000 times. They try to say it's another one, but...
Oh, would you stop? Anyway, back to him turning face. Let me walk you through that.
But, you go back and look at the guys he worked with in that Intercontinental title picture. Goldust. Dustin. You look at Jeff Jarrett, Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels. Who else do we have going this list?
Let's see. Trying to make sure that you said Kevin Nash already. He does the bad guys match at Survivor Series. That leads into the Jarrett feud. Again, that's Jarrett again. Looks like Sean, Dean Douglas.
Well, regardless, I mean that list alone is like a who's who, right?
Yeah, I think you named everybody. Is my point.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's a who's who. You look at that, man, and it's just like, can you get any better at that time?
No, at that point, no, you couldn't have. You literally had every big name in the company at that point. Maybe minus 1 or 2 surrounding. You could have played the 7 degrees of Razor Ramon.
I mean, listen, he main evented
WWF at that point.
He main evented a Survivor Series with Bret Hart.
Yeah.
And this is early. This is really the first couple years where first 2 or 3 years on the mainstream. They strapped a rocket ship to him.
And
right?
he never faltered. Right? Like he had the rocket ship attached to his back, and unlike some other people, he never really screwed up. He always hit every single point he needed to, right? And everything was gold.
Yeah. And again, you look at it, right? Every program he was, main event or not, it felt special. It felt like it was something, whether it was just tag teaming with the 1, 2, 3 kid after the fact. Different things. He always was one of the featured acts that you said, okay, this I have to sit and I have to watch this guy. Because you felt like you were going to miss something, whether it was something he said in his promos, something that he did in the ring. He was, and then you go back and it continued to translate through his WWF run. Then we eventually start to get to the point now where he's realizing what his value is. This is a time of no guaranteed contracts.
Mhm.
So now we move on to where his contract's up. He talks to Vince. He says, Vince, I just need some kind of a guarantee, basically. Or, can I get a cut of my merchandise? Or can I go and work in Japan? And Vince said, well, you can go and work in Japan, but if I need you, then we have a problem. So he saw the writing on the wall, and there's so many different, it's so crazy. My mind is so crazy with how many different iconic moments of the business that he was a part of. Because you go now and then you talk about that leap. Now he's going to make that leap.
Literal leap over the barricade.
Jumps the barricade. And I'll tell you, as a fan, nobody knew he left. And this is before the video of the curtain call came out, where at that time, really, you had to be like a subscriber of a legitimate newsletter that you got in the mail in order to really know about it. Because, the internet was kind of a brand new thing at this point for people in the mainstream wise. But you look at that and the curtain call, how iconic that moment, that broke kayfabe at a time where nobody broke kayfabe.
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody managed to sneak in. Imagine if that person was not able to sneak a camcorder in to that event. How different would the business look today?
I don't think the business would look any different, but I think certain careers would look different.
Well, I don't know. I mean, kayfabe maybe eventually goes away still, but I don't know that it does at this point. But despite that, when he jumped that guardrail at WCW, it was so mind-blowing because you really didn't know. Is this like, are we seeing these companies now invade each other?
And so I've gone back and I've watched that moment, that episode, and I've watched a lot of old school, right? WCW from around that era. Because when I got what?
I love Brinkman's comment. Oh, John Danzo put in Rick Martel. I love Brinkman's comment. It says, remember when they used to call Mean Gene Scheme Gene? I loved that. I love that.
But so I've got when WWE 24/7 came out and subsequently the network and all the different streaming that WWE had, and I was able to go back and watch old Nitros. Of course I did, right? And I started in '96 because that's when things started getting good, and they were pretty bad early on. But if you go back and you watch that May 27th episode and how they play it off as, what is he doing here? What about the match? What about this? What about that? Right? It's one of the best realist moments in professional wrestling. Because, and then you take yourself back to your point, like you said, you go back to the year of '96, and nobody would have known, right? And if I remember correctly, they had a handshake agreement with Vince.
I believe. Maybe,
I know Nash did.
I don't believe that Scott Hall had a handshake agreement.
Okay, I thought they both did, but either way, right? Nobody would have known. You would have had no clue. So I can only imagine, right? Because I wasn't watching. I don't come around till about 98, 99, right? So I couldn't imagine sitting at home, flip over to Nitro. That's Razor Ramon. What the hell is happening here? And it's a 3 or 4 line promo, right? He doesn't say much, and all he says is, right? You know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
You won a war, you got it. And he's gone.
That was it. And to credit to some of the guys like Mike Enos who were in the ring at that time, the way those guys played that off to where they're like having this match and they just kind of stop in the ring and they just look like, what is going on? Like it looked legitimate. Like,
yeah,
this doesn't seem like it's part of the show. What's happening right now? It was so masterfully done. And like you said, he didn't use his name. But that's how cool he was. He never had to say his name. You know who I am. You don't know why I'm here. That's it. Couple words, like his Hall of Fame speech, right? This dude, he was, it's like speak softly, carry, or what was it? Speak softly and carry a loud stick, or whatever it was.
Was it walk softly and carry a big stick? I know who said it.
Anyway, Teddy Roosevelt. Anyway,
yeah, I'm looking it up.
He was one of those guys who minimal amount of words had to be used, and it made such an impact. And those couple lines alone changed the industry forever.
Speak softly and carry a big stick.
Okay, so I was there we go.
Close enough.
So I said long, big stick, yeah, whatever. Hey yo. But he was a man who did not need to use a ton of words and was able to put off monstrous promos. And then again, when you talk about the next week where he comes in, so I got my buddy, he's going to be shows up. He's in Eric Bischoff's face doing the whole point behind, and the big guy shows up. I mean, those guys and really everything about that era, right? It was so real when they would jump the guardrail. We had Larry Zbyszko on the show. Larry talked about, and if you haven't checked it out, you can go back and watch it. Actually, it would be fun to watch and hear him talk about that again. He goes and he talks about that moment on Raw or on Nitro where everybody's in the ring, something's going on in the back, we're getting word from the truck, all the wrestlers start running to the back, and you see them throw Rey Mysterio into the side of the truck. Arn Anderson's on the ground, they got baseball bats, the infamous Larry Zbyszko line, they got baseball bats, the cowards. You think about that and how real that felt, and Eric Bischoff talks all the time about how they got phone calls from the surrounding area, people thinking there was a gang fight going on.
So you go back and you listen to his 83 Weeks podcast, and I think they talk about it with the first one's on the NWO, right? I think one of the first ones. And he goes, the cops actually show up to Disney MGM Studios, a place you and I are both very, very familiar with.
Yep.
Right? And he goes, we had to tell the cops, no, this is TV. We're shooting a TV show here. But they thought it was a riot because of just how insane it was.
Another one of those iconic moments, man. And you go back and you continue to go on. Obviously, this moment right here alone, to me, it's the most shocking moment. There's two moments in wrestling that I find to be the most shocking moments. And I'm taking out everything that happened with Owen Hart because that is in its own class.
Correct.
When you talk about actual in-ring surprises and things, Undertaker's streak ending to Brock Lesnar is 2. Sorry, buddy.
It's okay.
And it's this. Bash at the Beach 96. Hogan shows up. He's going to come out. He's going to help Savage. He's going to help Luger and Sting. And then he drops the leg on Savage. He's the third man. You see all the trash thrown in the ring. People wanting to jump the guardrails. Hogan's cutting a promo on everybody. Nash and Hall, particularly Hall. You see him in the background. He's just taunting everybody as it's all going on. This is like one of the most. This to me is the most iconic moment.
That moment though, take out iconic, take out shocking. That moment right there is when, like we talk about the curtain call, how it broke kayfabe and changed the wrestling business and everything like that. But that moment right there, if that moment doesn't happen, and I've thought about this a lot because I've listened, again, I'm a big 83 Weeks listener. I love listening to Eric Bischoff talk about these things. It almost didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, they didn't know who was going to come out.
Right? And so, but if you think about it and go back, and if it wasn't Hogan, if it ended up being Sting, that doesn't work. Right? No. The wrestling business is not what it is today. The NWO doesn't take off and do what it did. Right? That only worked because of Hogan, Hall, and Nash. And that trifecta. Because you had the greatest, most iconic symbol of pure goodness in professional wrestling. You had the big guy, the Big Daddy Cool, right? And then you had the literal walking persona of just cool and machismo and the bad guy, right? And you had it all blend together. It was truly the perfect storm. And like I can't get over, like, we sit here and we're doing the show and we're thinking back to all these moments and it's like, damn, Hall was there for that. Hall was there for that too. Right? And we're gonna get to it, but Goldberg's streak. Right? The NWO at WrestleMania. Everything that the NWO did in WCW. Right? Oh, I can't get over it. I can't get over just how, like, important he was. You know, back to the poll question. He was so important without ever being the guy.
His fingerprints are all over so many of the biggest moments. If you were to go top 10 biggest moments in pro wrestling history, I guarantee that Scott Hall's a part of at least 3 or 4 of them. And for a guy who was never a world champion, that says a lot. That says a lot. Frank says DDP saved Scott. Seeing the DDP Yogro in his rehab was an amazing journey. I'm glad that Scott had a second chance in life and made the most of it. I agree with that. That was a heartbreaking documentary to watch. But it also did have that feel-good kind of a thing, and we got to see it play out for a little bit longer as well. John says, didn't he and Kevin get sued for WWE by WWE for gimmick infringement? They tried to say, I mean, I don't know how they could sue Kevin Nash. He never implied he was Diesel. He literally was himself. I do think that's why he dropped the accent in WCW.
So the Scott Hall thing, it was more Scott than it was Kev.
Yeah, Kevin was just stuff. I mean,
and it wasn't necessarily suing them; they were suing WCW.
Yeah, yeah.
And Eric goes into a lengthy thing about that too, because WWF, I think, wins that battle. Right?
Well, that's why he dropped the accent.
Yeah. So it's worth a listen to. If you go back and you listen to Eric, because Eric tells it better than anybody ever will. You go back and listen to that. Eric does a great job telling that story.
Yeah, absolutely. Even look at DDP, right? We're talking about making guys. DDP, the first guy to actually get to the NWO.
Mm-hmm.
When, you know, and him and Hall and Nash talked about it often, about how nobody touched them. Nobody touched the NWO. Everybody was spray painted, laying on their stomach or laying on their back or thrown into the side of trucks. DDP was the first guy to walk out with the upper hand on that Nitro moment. Another huge pop, by the way.
When he dropped, I think he dropped
Kevin
Hall. Hall
or
first.
Was it Hall? I thought it was Nash.
I think he drops Hall first with the diamond cutter.
Yeah, and then he jumps out. Yeah, you're right. I think it was Scott Hall. First time anybody got to the NWO. And that didn't happen often in those days. And the NWO, you know, obviously they have the Wolf Pack and this and that. Scott Hall becomes the lone wolf at certain points. One angle I'm not a fan of, and I think, considering the man's life, there's nothing really that's untouchable here. I was not a fan of the Scott's inebriated in matches, and they did that whole angle tapping into his substance abuse. I think all of them regret that in hindsight now.
They do.
But that's one I would take back. And honestly, to be fair, I don't really think of that very often. Daniel Bakley, hey, yo. What's up? I'm loving all the hey, yo's coming in. I love it.
I just pulled up the clip. DDP puts the shirt on, shakes Hall's hand, drops Hall with the diamond cutter. Nash turns around, sees it, runs at him for the clothesline. DDP pulls down the rope, throw him out of the ring.
Yep, that's right. I can visualize literally the whole thing now. But you talk about that, and again, it's just so many iconic moments. I go back to the Fall Brawl matches and the NWO, especially the first one, NWO versus Team WCW. Mm-hmm. The way that whole thing worked, and you touched on it earlier, Andy, right? Sting, I don't know what the dynamic would have been like if Sting would have had to fill that spot if Hogan did not agree to doing it, because the dynamic of Hogan, Nash, and Hall being the New York guys coming from the North, Vince McMahon guys, Titan Sports, all that stuff. It just, that created such a believability about it to, again, where we talk about the way these guys carried themselves. And I think Scott Hall is a huge focal point in it of how real this truly felt. It's just a testament to how that was all played out, playing off of that history, and these guys knowing exactly the right strings to pull. And when we talk about today and people not being able to find themselves, find their gimmicks and this and that, he's never a guy that ever wavered from it. And we'll talk about it, but he gave back to the business quite a bit in his second chance at life, which I think is phenomenal.
And reading those stories on Twitter over the last couple of days have just been incredible. I can't remember any specific names, but just every so often on Twitter, you'll see somebody post like several screen grabs of a note they wrote. And I'm like, all right, time to read. And it, the one guy, I can't remember who he was, talk about how he met Scott on a weekend tour and Scott took him out to dinner that night. Well, they went out to dinner and Scott paid for him. And then everything they did that week, Scott paid for. And at the end, he just looks at Scott and goes, I don't know how to repay you for any of this. And he goes, when you make it big, you repay it to somebody. You do the same I did to you to somebody else. And it's so, like, we think about all the stuff that Scott struggled with, whether it was drugs, the alcohol, whatever, right? But he was such a genuine guy and such a student of the business, but also a teacher of the business. Mm-hmm. In the video package that WWE had, it showed him sitting at NXT. Right, anytime he was available, he was popping over to the Performance Center, sitting with a lot of that talent, and going, "Nope, you should do this, say this, walk like this." He loved to give back to a business that made him.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, tons of stories like that where you talk about that, and one of the ones I think of is Zack Ryder, right, or Matt Cardona, one of the bigger stars now, who met Scott. He said, I thought it was cool how he put it, where when I was a kid, I got to take a picture with Razor Ramon holding his title, his Intercontinental Championship. Then I went, and at WrestleMania 32, I won the Intercontinental title, and I got to have Scott Hall, and he specifically said it as Scott Hall, got to hold my championship and take a picture.
He sought him out for that picture.
And if you've seen the clip of that, after they take the picture, he pulls Cardona to the side and has a conversation with him about his match, everything that worked, because that's what he did. He loved the business. And when he finally had that clear mind later in life, and he realized that he could refocus and rechannel a lot of that energy that he put into, some of his demons, he gave so much back in such a short period of time. And the thing, too, honestly, about Scott, a lot of the damage that he did, now I know it affected his family a lot, but for the most part, it was always self-inflicted. He never treated people poorly. You never hear stories about how he wasn't good to people and didn't treat people poorly. A lot of the damage he did was to himself. But he never seemed like he seemed like a guy you could see why DDP saw, like, this guy's not a lost cause. We need to save him, before something does happen, because he saw how much he had to give back. And shout out to DDP, by the way, for being able to help him steer the ship back into the right direction when I think everybody had essentially given up on him. And again, you see everything that he gave back. It's just phenomenal. And hey, I mean, he had runs after WCW. When he finally left, he went to Impact Wrestling and he did some other stuff. He eventually comes back to WWE. He has a featured match with Stone Cold Steve Austin. again, one of the cool things, seeing the NWO, at least early on, but seeing the NWO in the WWE, one of those things we never thought we would see, right? And
that Vince promo where he says he's going to inject a lethal dose of poison. It's dumb now, like looking back on it, but when you watch it and
tell it myself,
yeah, and how he went about it all, and then it has that NWO to close out the show. You were like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah,
you know,
wild moment, man. It was such a good time to be a fan then. And that's kind of where you started watching, right?
Mm-hmm. I started watching at the fall of. It was right around WrestleMania 15 is when I started watching because Mataraki took me to my first show. He took me to a house show in Philly leading up to WrestleMania, and so I started watching there. And I would turn on WCW, but I was never really like invested in WCW unless it was like Goldberg or the NWO.
Yeah,
and I still didn't really truly get what the NWO was. Because they were already there. I was like, wait, what are these guys?
Yeah. See, that's why, man. I got to tell you, living that time in pro wrestling, I don't care what anybody says. They want to talk about the Horsemen in the 80s, fine. And I'm sure, I know that was a phenomenal time, but I'll tell you what, the Monday Night Wars and WCW versus WWF with the NWO and then eventually DX, it was such a great time. It was such an unbelievable time to be a fan when that was going on. And again, that ignites. People say, well, Luger showing up at Nitro was kind of one of the stuff. Sure. But the real moment where the impact was made was when Scott Hall came out. That shifted everything. That started the domino effect where everything changed in pro wrestling forever. Mm-hmm. Then you look at the guaranteed contracts. These guys now, everybody can thank Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. And really, it's Scott Hall because Scott was the first one to do it. Scott Hall was the one who single-handedly changed the industry. When you go back, and I believe it's Curt Flood in Major League Baseball, right? Where he ended up having a court case that changed what free agency was in professional sports. Because at the time, they didn't really have, right? I'm educating you now. He's a guy who's kind of iconic because he changed the financial industry of Major League Baseball. Scott Hall's the guy that did that for pro wrestling. Nothing was, at the time then in Major League Baseball, they didn't really have free agency. And by Curt Flood doing what he did, it has changed the dynamic really of professional sports. Scott Hall did that. And Kevin Nash also as well. They did that for everybody there now. So all these, when we talk about the releases and everything, and how they have these non-compete clauses and they get paid through their it's all guaranteed money now. They get that would have never existed. You're cut, you're gone. You don't get a penny.
But Scott Hall was probably also the reason for the no-compete clause.
Yeah, I mean,
but I would argue that one.
I don't hate the no-compete clause.
I love it. I think it's great.
I don't hate it, and I'll tell you why I don't hate it. And I think you'll agree with me. At least it gives you a breather.
Mm-hmm.
Is there times where I think it's impactful for someone to go to another company? Sure, when their contract's up, like Adam Cole. But sometimes, like if a guy's released from a contract or a girl's released from a contract, generally they're not, unless you're like Bray Wyatt, which was kind of a surprise. It's not always somebody who's really featured, and it's probably somebody who 2 or 3 months away from TV to take a breather and come back with a refresher.
Was it you that said it when we were talking about Big E being gone? Somebody said it. We're talking about Big E, how Big E's injured right now, right? And somebody said absence makes the heart grow fonder.
That was not me, but I do agree with that sentiment. Not necessarily with him, because
no. But right. in translating it, right? You look at somebody like Keith Lee, yes. Right? Keith Lee was off TV, comes back to AEW, and it's like, holy shit!
Yeah, I don't know. I look at Keith Lee and
The analogy works. Shut up.
he looks like he's still off. A little slow in there.
Whatever. Regardless, but we're at WCW. I mean WWE and WWF with the NWO, and instantly they're in programs with Stone Cold and The Rock. Here we are. We just finished an invasion angle, right? And now we're doing it all the hell over again. But now you're doing it with the people that should have been there the first time, number one. But number
Right.
two, you think about Hogan running the semi-truck into The Rock's ambulance.
Yeah.
You think about how Austin and Hall had their spat.
Yeah.
Right? Not Kevin Nash. No, it was Scott Hall with Stone Cold Steve Austin, who arguably at that time might have been more popular than The Rock.
The argument I'll make, just because I'm seeing a couple comments in here.
Which one?
You can't hold the original invasion angle against the WWE.
I don't.
But for people who don't know, you're right. This is the ideal. That was what they wanted to do. But because of Eric giving guaranteed contracts, and these guys were able to, if you show up on TV, you sacrifice that money. If you sit it out and wait your contract out, you get paid every cent by Time Warner. That's how that works. It's kind of like me, right? I changed jobs 2 years ago. They were closing my job and we were going to get a severance, right? And they basically told me, well, if you stay till the end, you get a severance. But if you jump ship to somewhere else, you don't get a penny. It was kind of that deal. So they were kind of handcuffed to where they had no choice but to take all of that. I mean, DDP was a guy, and Booker T, obviously. You had some that shined, but overall, they wanted it to be Ric Flair and Sting, and they wanted it to be the NWO coming in and doing it the way in reverse that Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were able to do for WCW when they first went there. But they were hand-tied, so the first one didn't work. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Although the fans obviously didn't allow that happen, so because they the double turn at WrestleMania 18, basically.
But you, and not to go off on a tangent there, that'll be for my show this weekend, right? Because we're going to talk about a bunch of different WrestleMania moments.
Yeah.
But that night had to happen.
Yes.
In hindsight.
Oh, I mean, another industry-changing moment. And by the way, make sure you guys check out In This Very Ring this weekend when they start talking some WrestleMania coming up.
Yep. WrestleMania retrospective this weekend. I won't take roundtable from you. WrestleMania retrospective this weekend.
Well, we got to work out how we're going to do this roundtable this year. But that's conversation for off air. However, I have to say that the body of his work, and at the end it kind of tailed off a little bit, and I don't think that was necessarily a reflection on his character or anything. I just think the demons started getting to him. It was becoming a younger man's game. You started having John Cena come in, and a lot of these guys where, sometimes when your time is there, it's your time. They went to they went to Impact Wrestling for a little bit, which ironically enough, because I still watch Impact and stuff. Impact does this thing called Impact in 60. They show every week where it's a 60-minute show. They pick maybe it's a type of stipulation match. They do AJ Styles matches. It's basically a way they present their library on TV for people to try to promote, their little Impact Plus thing they have.
Right.
The episode they ran last week was Scott Hall.
Oh,
so it's on my DVR, and I want to watch it because I didn't really watch a lot of him. I think I watched one match that he had an Impact. But yeah, it's ironic that they just ran that last Thursday, and then everything happened the next day. That everything started to happen for him. So we got a couple comments in here. Let's see.
Where do you want me to go?
Brinkman says, "Remember when Hall hit Gold Turd with the cattle prod?"
Still that. So He talks about how the NWO storyline in WWF was dumb, but we're
Yeah.
not going to say this was dumb. I'm sorry, this was stupid.
Oh, well, that's why he put haha. It was, but listen, and Scott Hall, not Kevin Nash, Scott Hall ended Goldberg's streak.
Oh, here we go.
Well, what's worse, that cattle prod or Sami Zayn rigging the mic for Rick Boogs? Yeah, that's what I think.
Have a good show.
Yeah, thanks, bud. Daniel says Hall did a lot of work in AWA and WCW before the whole Razor character took off. And we did touch on that early in the show.
Mhm.
Diamond Stud and everything he did in the AWA, tag teamed with Kurt Hennig in the AWA, which was cool because Hennig took him under his wing. They were very, very close. It's so sad, man. You think, like, you know, I know Hall wasn't originally from Minnesota, but I know he was part of that Minnesota talent pool that developed because he went to Minnesota. And, man, you think about how much talent came out of there and how many of these guys are gone now. You know, look at the Road Warriors, you look at Kurt Hennig, Scott Hall. Ugh, it's heartbreaking.
It really is.
And everything that Scott went through for this to be what happened is even more heartbreaking. You know, for anybody who doesn't know the details, because there are people who have actually messaged me asking me exactly how it went down. He had fractured his hip, and he had surgery. I don't know if he fractured or fully broke it, but he had to have hip surgery. There were complications from that that resulted in a blood clot breaking off. He had multiple heart attacks, which
I read a report it was 3.
3, yeah. So he had 3 heart attacks, and that was kind of it. So it's so weird, right? You think of everything this guy went through, everything he did to himself, and just like that, you know what I mean? You never know. It's almost like the Chris Candido thing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Chris was still young and you know, maybe in the middle or towards the end of his prime, but he was still a young guy going, and a very similar thing in that he had complications from a surgery and a blood clot ended up taking him out. Yep, Daniel says Hall and Hennig as a tag team. Yeah, in those early days. But you go back and you look at the Hall of Fame, and he's a 2-time Hall of Famer.
Did you see? I don't remember who the name of the guy, but it was the writer that worked on Scott Hall's Hall of Fame speech with him, and he tweeted out the story of working on the Hall of Fame speech with Scott. So first of all, this guy requested to work with Scott. Okay.
Yeah.
And then he goes, Scott had already done his research, knew what he wanted to say. I did very little. We scheduled an hour. We spent about 10 minutes talking about the speech and then bullshitted for the rest of the hour. And he goes out there and cuts the best Hall of Fame promo ever.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do. It's just, and it so resonates with so many people. But 2-time Hall of Famer. You know, he went in last year again with the NWO. And for him to get this second chance at life, Andy, and we talked about everything that he gave to everybody. You know, for so many of these guys and gals who go into the Hall of Fame now, who don't get the opportunity to speak now, right? You talk about the Randy Savages, and you know the irony of the Warrior is just crazy. Thank God we got that, but you know that moment, Scott being able to be clear-minded, speak on his career, enjoy the fruits of that labor, that finally truly enjoy the fruits of the labor that he put in, give back to the industry, teach his son Cody. It's pretty special. pretty special. And, you know, somebody I think mentioned it earlier, but for him to be able to have a little bit of time after the fact and enjoy it, it's very nice.
You know, I love the moment of Scott Hall, and again, it's later, right? Where you talk about how everything later and you know, post WrestleMania 31, right, during the Sting Triple H match, and the NWO coming down, oddly enough, to help out Sting, right, versus
You know.
Triple H and, you know, DX. It was just great.
And I was there for that. What a moment.
Oh, that's right. You were in the building for that one.
I was at 31, and that's one of those moments where you never thought you would see. And I know they're older guys, but it was what it was. And what's so funny to me, I remember at the time, this is the internet morons, with it doesn't really make storyline sense. Why would the NWO help out the guy who they battled with the most? Like, dude, sometimes you just suspend a little bit of belief. Doesn't have to make total sense. It's WCW era, WWE or WWF Attitude Era. We're getting these moments, and we're getting the iconic moment of DX finally clashing with the NWO, what we all wanted to see. Mm-hmm. And to have that moment, something special that I'm incredibly blessed that I was able to be in the crowd to see and be a part of. That pop in that crowd was one of the biggest pops I've seen. And I mean, I was there for the Hardy one. And that was, you know, its own level, but nobody saw that coming. When that NWO music hit, it was like, oh my God, this is DX and NWO. It was amazing.
My only nitpick for it, and it's personal preference. I really wish it would have happened at night, because seeing the stage change to the black and white as they walk down, that would have been pretty sweet.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you, but special moment. I'm probably gonna go back and watch that moment tonight.
I know. I've already decided I am.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to look at Scott, so I mean, we'll end the show talking about some of our absolute favorite personal moments of being what we watch with Scott. But wrapping up kind of this era of him, this final era where he was the teacher. And there's so much content, by the way, guys. You can go back and watch JBL's interview with Hall and Nash. You can go back. There's NWO documentary. There's a Razor Ramon documentary about Scott Hall. There are multiple interviews. There's a Table for Three, or maybe even 2 Table for Threes that feature Scott Hall in it. To take this final era of his life, despite how it ended suddenly, I think is the absolute perfect way for somebody to show that you can redeem yourself. You could be on top of the world and then you can hit rock bottom, but there's always a way to come back. And there's always a way to give back. And it was really, really special. And like you said, all the times that you would see him at NXT, all the times you would see him backstage pulling people to the side, having discussions with people, pretty special.
I agree.
So what's your top moments here, Andy? Give me your top moments, and for everybody in the chat, guys, drop your top moments in for Scott Hall,
So
Kevin, or Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, however you want to remember him as.
I have to say I'm upset that I never got the opportunity to see him live. Like, off the top of my head, I can't remember him being in any show I've ever been at. So, like, that's probably, like, my biggest regret.
Yeah.
But as far as, like, my favorite moments, obviously, it's the NWO, not the NWO specifically, him jumping the barricade.
Mm-hmm.
And we touched on it just a little bit ago, 31. is a great moment. I'm a sucker for the Hall of Fame, so his Hall of Fame speech.
Sure.
Right. I
That's
love
everybody's number one. I mean,
Yeah, I love the Hall of Fame. And oddly enough, it was Raw 25. His appearance at Raw 25 in the Hammerstein Ballroom. Only because I'm pretty sure he was the only person in the NWO to throw a punch. I think he swung on the Revival.
which, by the way, if you saw their tweet, was pretty cool too.
I haven't seen theirs. I gotta go find it.
They put out a tweet and somebody asked them about some of the ring gear they had worn before, and they had an NWO inspired gear a couple of times actually. So their FTR gear that they wore that was kind of
Sideways.
patty corner diagonal,
Yeah.
they said was always inspired after Scott Hall's NWO and gear.
Oh, cool.
And then they did show where they had a black and white set of trunks and everything that they wore. And I wonder if they would wear that again since they are FDR. Maybe this week on if they're featured on there, maybe they would wear that, especially because they're turning face now.
Yeah.
I wonder if they would wear that this week. That would be cool if they did. But yeah, they said that they had a vest and gear inspired after Scott Hall. So yeah, that's a good one, Daniel. The original and honestly, the SummerSlam rematch was phenomenal too, between Shawn and Razor.
See, I can't put the WrestleMania match up there. I can, but it falls probably like 5 or 6 for me.
Yeah.
Just because, and again, it's very hard to turn that side of my brain off, right? You nitpick the finish to that match. It's not a really good finish because, but again, I find it hard to turn that off for me, right? Because everything else he does is so good.
Yeah.
Right, you start nitpicking his stuff to find like, all right, how do you rank these? What do you say is better than what? And I got to nitpick the matches that he's in because they're all damn good matches.
Yeah. I saw him one time live. I saw a WCW show in '98 at the Spectrum. And then I obviously saw him at WrestleMania 31. So 31 holds a special spot in my heart. WrestleMania 10, it has to be up there. We discussed it earlier. I have always loved the angle with the 1-2-3 Kid and how he made him a star instantly. Because I really can't think of very often where in those jobber matches a guy became somebody out of it. Maybe the Barry Horowitz with Chris Candido with Skip from the Body Donnas. You know, he had a little moment there, but I mean, Kid became a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
You know, and the obvious, you know, jumping the barricade and all that stuff. And then there's so many WCW moments that it's so hard to work through it all, to be honest with you.
It really is.
I mean, wow. But
I would clump his his WCW and NWO run as like one big moment.
Yeah. I would argue that I was more invested, and I think a lot of people may have been more invested. That's a good one, Jake. More invested in his Intercontinental title run at the time when he was the Intercontinental Champion, while Bret Hart was the World Heavyweight Champion. And I'm not saying that out of favoritism. I'm saying it because it's true. At that time, the Intercontinental title felt more important than the World Heavyweight Championship. So, any final thoughts, Andy, before we sign off here, bud?
I did like WWE's tribute to him last night. I really liked the video.
It was great.
And the
was really
little
great.
nuances from Kevin Owens and Damian Priest. I really liked it.
And that was great that throughout the night, guys, I mean, especially Kevin Owens laid it on real thick.
Yeah, he did.
Like the casual, like, hey, yo, as soon as he opened the promo, and then the whole quoting the Hall of Fame speech to Seth Rollins, he just, that's why I love KO, by the way. KO is he's so good. Kevin Owens he's so good at everything that he does. And the way he is like Scott Hall in that it's just so natural when he does things. But anyway, pretty cool moment. Pretty cool little spots last night.
Yeah.
Hats off to WWE for a great video package to highlight his career, and for the superstars to pay their tributes in their own ways. I'll be curious to see if anybody does anything on SmackDown. I'm surprised and pleasantly surprised that we didn't have the internet going in uproar that they didn't do a 10 bell salute, because they tend to do that. But no, pretty cool. And Scott's going to be missed. It was a pleasure to be able to watch him, and I know I'm grateful for the time and being able to watch him from essentially point A and point B to where he really kicked off. So, guys, great comments coming in. Yeah, Damian Priest using this finish. I'm wondering if Priest is going to use his finisher going forward.
I could see that.
Well, I mean, the timing is kind of ironic, and maybe we'll be able to discuss this on a future show. I know we didn't get who we thought we were going to get last night, but there's a report that it's not an accident either, that his finisher changed. Damian Priest. Maybe because of somebody who might be coming in.
It's possible. I'm still salty about that last line of the show last night from Corey and the other guy. I thought we were getting it.
Listen, I know this is a Scott Hall show, but we're just going to say this about it. There is no doubt. It is 100% certain that Cody Rhodes is going to be at WrestleMania in either just a face-to-face with Seth Rollins or in a match. You may not see him until WrestleMania, but it's going to happen. And the fact that I hated the storyline that they did last night. The match was great, by the way. The match between Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins. They are so good against each other. But
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to respond because I know you're going to be talking about it on Saturday. But the fact that they did that angle as they did it, even though I thought it was stupid that you already released the Austin video of Austin saying he's going to kick Kevin Owens' ass. But that just told me everything, that they're just going to wait until WrestleMania and they're going to do it. But it is 100% happening. Because if there was any doubt, 2 weeks before WrestleMania, Seth Rollins wouldn't be sitting here without an opponent.
Yeah.
Without question.
He's not missing it. But it's just the one thing about WrestleMania this year that frustrates me so much, because I'm not watching night one live. I have a work commitment that's preventing me from watching it live.
I might not be watching it live either. I might have to watch it the next morning.
So we're gonna watch the next day, because Butters and I are gonna react to night two. Right? So I'm gonna watch it the next day. It'd be fresh in my mind. But I might bring my AirPods with me, and if I hear Seth walking down to the ring, I'm gonna turn it on at my work commitment, because that's not something I want to miss.
Yeah.
I just wish I knew it was promoted and when it's gonna happen.
Yeah, that would be a tough miss for night one.
Oh, it would make me so mad.
I'm gonna have to stay off the internet now.
You're gonna have to.
So
I'm not, because I want to know.
yeah. Well, don't spoil nothing for me. You guys like to do that.
I've been good. Okay, I've been
You
good.
have been better. Thank God.
I've been good. my fault. You can't watch anything on time.
I choose not to. I
Mm.
don't like commercials. I don't like to watch stuff I don't care about, so I can fast forward through it.
Whatever. Yeah, but you watched last night, damn it. You and I watched for the same reason last night.
I fast forwarded through a lot of filler, though.
I didn't turn it on until the match.
I watched
get
the
it.
Sixers game. I watched the Sixers game at halftime. I turned on Raw, and I watched it maybe halfway through the third quarter. So I got through like the first hour, and then I turned it off, and then the Sixers game ended, and I kind of was able to fast forward through quite a bit of Raw after that.
Yeah. But it wasn't until I think it was Pete messaged, anybody watching? I was like, no, but I am now.
Yeah. Anyway, good stuff.
Great stuff.
Appreciate you guys. All these. Cody was in Florida yesterday too. He was spotted at Disney with Matt Cardona.
Well,
so it wasn't yesterday. It was last week.
But I'm pretty sure he tweeted out yesterday.
Yeah.
That he was on his way to Jacksonville. Hashtag AEW Dynamite.
No, he didn't.
Somebody sent me a screen grab, and I'm gonna be really mad because I didn't fact check it. I should have.
Cody's like the king of trolling right now, though.
I know.
He was like rarely ever active on social media, and now like he's released.
All right, never mind. The tweet's not there.
There's no tweet that says that.
Fair
there is
enough.
one of Brandy though from 3 hours ago.
It's a great tweet. Everybody should go see it.
Yep, nice little Tuesday tweet from Brandy Rhodes. Anyway, great show, great moments, great contributions from all of you guys out there. We appreciate you guys as always. And from us here, condolences to Scott Hall's family, to his family, his friends, his coworkers, his colleagues, his fans. Tough loss for everybody. I don't really feel affected much. I don't want to say much. This one, I felt a little bit more than some of the other ones. Because he's just, for me, he's one of my favorite guys of all time, and it was very, very sad. So, condolences to everybody who's a Scott Hall family or friend or colleague or fan out there. So, Andy, who pays our bills?
This very, very special Lazy Booking was brought to you by Dr. Paul Vidal at Specialized Physical Therapy, LLC. He's got 2 locations at Burlington and Cherry Hill, New Jersey. He's our doc, make him yours. That's Dr. Paul Vidal at SpecializedPhysicalTherapy.com. We also want to give a big shout out to BetUS. They are the leading online sports book, and they've been in the market for over 25 years. You can bet anywhere in the U.S. on literally anything. Use the link below for a 125% sign-up bonus.
Where's the link?
I clicked on the wrong one because this isn't mine. Where is their BetUS? There it is. So I have it in this very ring folder where they're in order of how I read them. Right? I just realized I'm not in that folder because it's not my show. Because I've got the reads here, and so it's muscle memory. Click, 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 click.
Well done.
Oh, Jesus. So we thank BetUS, we thank Specialized, we thank all our sponsors. Area Public Adjusting.
Got EXP Realty too while you're at it.
Yeah, EXP Realty. If you're looking to buy or sell a home, change your career brokerage, contact Alan Foy of EXP Realty, LLC, 302-682-8820. Can't forget about FanUp. If you guys haven't already, make sure you guys have downloaded FanUp and use the code HUD for 5,000 bonus points. Manscaped, 20% off and free shipping. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job at Manscaped. We got to show some love to the Home of Ramp booth. All campus, they're giving 20% off everything in their store, including hat, shirts, and team cornhole sets. And I mentioned Area Public Adjusting. They're licensed in Florida, Pennsylvania, and 13 other states. That is everybody that makes all the shows here at HD Radio possible. Chrome, take us out of here.
Yeah, guys, for myself, for Andy, make sure you guys check out his show, In This Very Ring with Butters, Saturday night. They're going to be starting ramping up WrestleMania season. Stay tuned. We're going to try to put together, as we do every year, one of our WrestleMania roundtables. So we'll have to come up with a new little concept this year, buddy. We try to change it up every year. So
Yep.
we'll come up with something, and make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Make sure you guys, NFL free agency really fired up over the last couple days. So there's going to be a lot of talk about that over the next few days. You have A2D Wednesday nights tomorrow night. I know our boys at Birds of a Feather. We're going to be talking some football and all the different shows here on A2D Radio. A smorgasbord of shows here on A2D Radio.
And don't forget, me and Ralphie, we're over on Twitch. I'm actually, as soon as this ends, I'm going to wait 20 minutes, and I'm going to go live on Twitch with a little late night gaming. Ralphie starting tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. He's bringing you a bunch of old NCAA games. So ton of fun.
Did you get WWE 2K22?
I don't have a platform to play it on. I'm not going to play it on my PC. I got rid of my Xbox. I got rid of my PlayStation. Ever since I built the PC, because I don't touch it anymore. I've heard great things, but not enough for me to run out and get it.
I will say, despite previous games, I think they fixed it. It is, from what I've played so far, much, much better. Faction mode is a lot of fun. Much, much better game this time around. So they may have saved themselves over there at 2K, because there was a lot of rumors going out there that if this game faltered, they were packing up and shipping out for EA Sports next. So good job out of them so far. I'll have to give a full report back when I play a little bit more. It'd be fun to talk about. But so far, what you heard is I think probably pretty accurate, pretty good.
Yeah.
So for myself, for Andy, and everybody here at A2D Radio, we love you guys. Hug somebody out there. Tell them you love them. Andy, I love you, buddy.
Love you too, bud. This was fun. Hopefully we can do this again, when someone doesn't die.
Yeah. Wow, that was dark. That was like a Frank comment right there. By the way, thanks, Frank, for giving us our opening tonight.
I had to segue us to Frank. I had to get us there.
Took a couple clicks to get there, but we got it. But thank you to them, Big Dad, and everybody else here at A2D Radio. We love you guys. Take it easy. Hug somebody. Tell them you love them. Take care of yourselves. Hey, Dad, we have fun together. We have fun. We're gonna try to do this more often, and I can't wait to get on the air and argue with you again. It's been a little too long.
Right.
So,
throw them up for Razor, guys.
Too sweet.